So 7:02 p.m. on Monday, March 17th, 2025. This is members of the newly elected Waterbury Select Board. And we're gonna get to going with organization and the like, but first off, just approving the agenda. There's an agenda that's been warned online. Three minor things I'm aware of. Since is that we received one more special event permit liquor license for Lawson's Finest Liquid on March 22nd, from 1 to 3 p.m. to do a special event at Hollow Cider Mill. And in addition, we have executive session on this draft agenda. In addition to labor relations, it will also be for pending litigation involving the town. Any other, any other additions or changes?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second. All those in favor, though we're not organized?
Aye.
Motion aye. All right, so we have an approved agenda. The next item is select board organization. So for formalities, we need to elect a chair, vice chair, and secretary for the board.
Second.
Motion and second to elect me as chair. Any further discussion?
Thank you for doing it thus far and hopefully doing it again.
Happy to, if you're happy to have me.
For a term of 1 year.
Yes, yeah, organizing for this year until town meeting again. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And all abstaining, as it's about me. Next up, we have vice chair. Any motions with regard to vice chair? Roger?
I'll move to nominate Kane Sweeney as vice chair.
Second. Motion and second on vice chair. Any further discussion?
Thank you for your faith in me to serve as vice chair again.
Ron?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Me.
Perhaps record time. And next up is secretary. I note that Mike Bard isn't present, but did convey to me on the phone that he was willing to do this if needed, but also would open the floor for any and all nominations for secretary.
I need to accept Mike Bard's volunteering for secretary.
Second.
All right, motion to designate Mike Bard as the secretary with the second by Kane. Any further discussion?
I'd like to thank Mike for volunteering.
Yeah.
In abstention.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you all. That was perhaps record time. We will also convey this to our town clerk, Karen Petrovic, who reports it to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, so they have requisite contact information for the year. Next up is the consent agenda. We have quite a slew of consent agenda items, the majority of which are liquor and tobacco licenses. Also included on there is the approval of the meeting minutes for the last regular select board meeting on February 17th. The approval of the minutes of town meeting on March 4th. The approval of the minutes from the special select board meeting we had on Friday to approve a liquor license. And then as noted, we have a second class tobacco and tobacco substitute license for Brockton Corporation, Shaw's. On Route 100 in Waterbury, second class license for Evan Hospitality, Best Western Plus in Waterbury, 45 West Hill Road. Second class license for KPH Drugs, special event permit for Snow Farm Winery, on 4/19/25, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. First and third class license and outside consumption permit, for Shamrock Pub Company, Abilities Irish Pub, 3 South Main Street. Second class tobacco and tobacco substitute licenses for Wesco Inc., Champlain Farms, 1 North Main Street. Second class tobacco and tobacco substitute licenses for Wesco Inc., Shell, 713 Waterbury Stowe Road, and then as we noted at the top, special event permit manufacturer for Lawson's Finest Liquid LLC, event on 322 at Cold Hollow Cider Mill. In terms of general process, we have not yet gone through rules and procedures, but for consent agenda, it's intended for items that are non-controversial. Any board member can ask to have any item removed off of the consent agenda and added elsewhere on the agenda without the need for a motion. But otherwise it would be approving items as a slate and not intended for a discussion, besides minor clarifying questions.
I move. Yeah, you can move.
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Right, motion by Roger, second by Tori on the consent agenda, again, not intended for discussion. Any clarifying questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. 7:15, that brings us to public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the public to be able to address anything that isn't already on the warrant agenda. I will take the liberty of offering two general public announcement informations before we get started. One is which is Tom, if you can make me a co-host. Oops. Time to
Middle up there in the middle, and co-host.
And that is by way of orientation. For those of you perhaps not on the select board, maybe you don't spend as much time on waterburydvt.com/board/select board. But I just wanted to make note of some updates here because it is a place where a lot of our information lives. It's something we're going to be referencing during the meeting, and we've just had some updates on it. So I just wanted folks to be aware. Again, you'll note select board members at the top with our emails, so you can contact us. In general, we would ask that you BCC all of us because we cannot reply all to emails because of open meeting law. It's a meeting. The more important reason I wanted to flag this is because the meetings are now being displayed differently. So you'll note tonight, we're here at March 17th. This meeting now has its own little file on the town website. So if you click on it, you'll see this is where the agenda is for the meeting, but also a number of related files. We often have supporting materials that help us. So those are now going to be posted, and the minutes, once completed, will also live on the same page. So if we go back, you do have to scroll a little down to recent meetings. We just approved some previous meeting minutes. So you can see for this select board, we have the minutes available from that. So just wanted folks to be aware because it is a somewhat different layout than has been previously the case. Again, you're clicking on the specific date of a select board meeting, and then you should be able to find all of the materials. I'll let Tom elaborate on that further, but just wanted to open that in terms of public awareness. Taking some additional liberties to also just flag two upcoming municipal events. The Housing Task Force is doing an education workshop series, Building Better Waterbury. There's a workshop tomorrow on design and construction and some flyers on the table. And the Planning Commission is doing a number of visioning forums as part of the town plan. They have one coming up this Thursday that is virtual, and also two more in-person sessions, one on Saturday, March 29th at the Brookside Primary School, and one on Wednesday, April 2nd at the Grange Hall Cultural Center. Again, flyers, and encourage folks to attend. That was a lot of me as a member of the public, but would open the floor to other members of the public who have things they'd like to share. Anyone who'd like to speak on public comment? And will you just introduce yourself in case anyone doesn't know you?
Same old Christians. Center. I spoke to Tom and Alyssa about maybe having a time slot for speaking on what took place in town meeting. They suggested by Alyssa that I either take some time during the public session or attend the agenda item itself. I don't think what I have to say is germane to the agenda item. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the takeaway I had from town meeting. I thought it was a great town meeting. It was pretty well attended. I'm not conveying this conversation in reference to myself so much as the people that attended, town meeting. One of the things that I noted that took place, which was a little bit disturbing to me, was several people, younger people, people that I don't know, for lack of a better term, I'll call them newcomers. When the agenda item, when the article came up to talk about whether or not to continue with the traditional town meeting or go to Australian ballot, there were several of them that ran to the front row seats to speak on this issue, which was fine, and most of their conversation was constructive. But one of the things that really rubbed me the wrong way is that several of them got up and in their conversation, they accused the people in the room, the attendees, of being privileged, for having the right to attend town meeting. And it wasn't so much that I heard it once, but I heard it more than once, several times in fact, and it started to eat at me. Because the more I thought about it, I said to myself, here are people that obviously are new to our town, new to the state. Have really no history in what's taken place in this town and probably other towns, they probably come here, and I'm speculating on some of that. Have decided that the people that were in the room, for whatever reason, however they were able to attend town meeting, the sacrifices that they made, the efforts that they put into the town, most of them longtime residents, some of them my friends, some of them don't care for my point of view on things. But for the most part, every one of them's my neighbor. And I'd be damned if I stood up there and called them privileged for having attended a tradition that's been going on in this state for 261 years. That to me is no way of gaining friendships in a community that we want to be a part of. What I see happening again with, and I'm not trying to single people out, but the younger generation is that they're looking to achieve what it's taken a lot of us 60, 65 years and even 80 years to accomplish. They want it in their mid-30s. They want to be at that same level that everybody else is at. But that takes effort, that takes achievement, that takes sacrifice. So many of those people have spent a lifetime in this town doing all the things necessary to be part of the community, raising their families, having their jobs, paying the bills, attending meetings, some of them serving as you people are now. And I guess that to me, I think is part of, and then you've heard me voice this opinion before. Community of strangers isn't a community, and we're having a generational shift in our population, in the state, in our town. And I think the younger generation is really missing an opportunity, as I have embraced in the 65 years I've been here, of enjoying the people that were older. My oldest friend is 84 years old, best friend, 84 years old. And I've learned so much from my elders and from even younger people. I look at everybody on the same playing field. And I think it'd be wise if somehow we could convey that message to people that want to come here and be part of our community, that there's a history here that's valuable. And if you knew part of that, you might not be so quick to judge people that you have probably never met, had any conversation with, engaged with, or anything. It's just, it disappointed me. It actually kept me awake for a couple nights in a row. Just gnawing at me that we've got to that point where privilege is a pretty loose word to use in situation. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else who would like to speak on public comment?
I'm Kelly Lake, I live in Waterbury, right? And this is all new. So bear with me. Great place to speak on it, but I think it is. So I live on Shaw Mansion and the road is in, you know, it's in my road and all the crazy weather, everything that goes on. Living in Vermont, the weather's crazy. I've lived here 9 years. So much has changed since COVID, like completely. Things have just gone so. Let me just stick on Shaw Mansion. So there's a ton of tax money that comes from the people that live and utilize Shaw Mansion. But the road is not taken care of properly. And instead I see money going towards, say, bike trails and, you know, upkeep of that, which is great because we are a tourist town. That's why people come here, to enjoy those things. But what I don't understand is, since we are such a tourist town, why don't we have a tourist tax? Those tourist taxes can go to the bike trails. And then the taxes that we pay, we can get our roads in. When, after the flood, the road caved in, and it was caved in for 2, 3, 4 months while all the red tape cuts, everything to finally get it back as a thoroughfare. So that wears on. The other thing that I would like to address is, when we go to vote here, you put your voting ballot into a machine and you don't get any printout. So you just have to trust that the machine marked your ballot correctly. I lived in Ohio for 25 years prior to moving here. We put our ballot in and whoop, out came the, little strip of paper, and it marked everything that you want. It would be, I don't know if this is the right place to address it or not, but I would love to get a printout to see who I voted for or how the machine marked me. The other thing, I ran for JOP, the Justice of the Peace, in 2022. I believe it's 2022. And there were 7 Democrats on the ballot and 6 Republicans. Not a single Republican got elected. Now, if you're going to have fair oversight on elections, there should be 6 and 6 or 3 and 3. That's only fair. But here, there are, I believe, 6 Democrats and 1 Republican GOPs. I find that I even called down here and said, how can that be? And she goes, well, it just is in Vermont. It's okay. I need someone who makes sense of that for me. I mean, I have a whole bunch more. I don't want to hear you guys for being, but I worry about forest management, dead trees hanging over the wires. A wind comes along, out goes the electric. The underbrush, how there's no clear. I don't know what happened to forest management. And growing up, forest clean. There are less forest fires. I don't know what's going on. And I'm gonna leave it at that. And I appreciate you guys listening. I truly do. I can see that you care, and that makes me feel good. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely.
Do you have any feedback? I'm all ears.
Thank you so much for coming in. And I would just note the only one in terms of content for elections, our town clerk is the chief administrator, Karen Petrovic, who is also elected as our town clerk, but we as the select board do not make decisions with regard to elections. That's the clerk's office.
Okay, I think she's the one I called.
So she might be able to provide more information on
Yeah, I
some
would
of those things. You're very good. Kane?
If you want a more thorough, breakdown of election procedure, you can always contact the Secretary of State's office.
I have tried, and I will again.
I just wanna talk about the road for a minute, since it's really today, it's really the start of mud season. If I've learned one thing about mud season from Vermont is if we put material on the road now. It's likely just gonna wind up in the ditch, but it's gonna snow at some point again, and we'll just plow it right off, and so. It pains me to say, we're not likely to do anything for the next week or two, because just throwing good money after bad, but that's the reality, is. If I had $1 million to fix the roads, I wouldn't spend any of it this time of year anyway. So we all just have to get through it as best we can, and Chris knows more about roads than me, and he's smiling back there, because I know he agrees on this one.
But I do understand mud season. I totally do. I mean, there are some washboards that could use gravel. So our next survive the ride to town. I get that. And I would love to get some feedback on the tourist tax. Do you have anything to do with that?
We have a local option tax, which taxes, spending at restaurants and hotels and short-term rentals. Which is essentially anyone who goes to a coffee shop or a restaurant, stays at a hotel, right, is paying that tax. So it could be you if you go get a cup of coffee, or it could be someone from New Jersey if they're getting a beer, right? So that's essentially like, we can't put up a toll booth, right, at the start of Waterbury and tax everyone with out-of-state plates. But both of them.
Yeah. One of the state. I don't know if I'm who I need to go to, probably down there, not really. But I think there's a lot of money for the city with that. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you. And our emails are online. I'd be happy to meet with you further about any of these things if you want to follow.
Thank you.
Any other folks on public forum? Okay. Seeing none, we will move into the exciting first meeting topic of select board administration and logistics. I gave a bit of a preview with the town website, but our first item under this is the select board rules of procedure. These are something that we've had for a number of years, just to kind of talk about how this meeting runs. I will note in the rules of procedure, it says 5 minutes for public forum. We have more than that based on our discretion, but that minimum is in there. If folks are interested, this would be our time to re-review those for the ensuing year, and then adopt them. We have the copy posted on the bulletin board. And also would just offer this as a time for us on the board to discuss kind of like how it works practically. I will be figuring out my 2.5 months as chair. There's certainly our official by the book rules, and then there's kind of our common practices and procedures. So noting that we have to follow open meeting law, we're going to keep doing this. Chair or vice chair is generally running the meeting. Definition of a quorum, again, a note that there should be at least 5 minutes for public comment. Again, in practice, we've given more than that. I am noting on number 5 under procedures about the agenda. And just to say that folks interested in being on the agenda, the folks it's listing is the town manager, the select board chair, which now for the next year is me, and the town clerk, who would direct you to the town manager or select board chair. We have started adding next meeting agenda onto our agenda, so we have that time for discussion, but I will say, like, I already get emails about events in the community or boards and commissions that want to come in and the like. So for the general public, let us know if there's something, and board members obviously can chat as it seems appropriate about ideas, but in practice, I work with Tom to finalize the agenda before each meeting. Any other questions, comments on the rules of procedure?
Roger, you didn't sign this last year.
Oh, no, we only needed 3 signatures. So
I think that'd be pretty nice.
So
everybody's out of town. It's
motion to approve the rules of procedure as needed by rule number 10.
Second.
So motion by Tori, second by Kane to adopt, re-adopt these Town of Waterbury Select Board rules of procedure. Is there any further discussion on it?
I think the addition of taking up the agenda for the following meeting has been a significant positive addition to our procedures. I don't know if it needs to be noted, but I would encourage you to continue that procedure.
Are you suggesting another format?
I said I didn't know if it needed to, I'm suggesting that we continue to do it.
Any other comments on this discussion? I think that brings us to a vote. So on the motion to re-adopt the rules of procedure for the next year, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, one item checked off. Hooray! So the next one is select board meeting schedule. I did not email this to Tom in time for the meeting, so let's see if we can screen share it. So in the past, the standing regular meeting time for the select board has been the first and third Mondays of the month at 7:00 PM. I used a really fancy Excel formula to write all of those dates out, which you can now look at. Let's see if I can look at them. So I went ahead and wrote every first and third Monday. I think for discussion is maintaining that. There's been some discussion about timing, which I certainly brought up informally with folks. Like tonight, though we've been moving quite expeditiously, sometimes these meetings do go till 10 PM or after. So there's some consideration if we want to have an earlier start time. I also have here not in bold the 5th Mondays. We have, I think, 5 over the next year, months where you have not only a first, third, second, fourth, but also a 5th Monday. In practice, we usually have quite a lot to cover, so there's been a suggestion that these could be good additions to our meeting calendar.
I'll speak on that. I was the one who suggested the 5th Monday and amending our calendar to include the 5th Monday. And yeah, the last 2 years we've been pretty heavy in agendas and getting this, out before midnight is a feasible goal. Should we adopt the 5th Monday policy?
I will note that does include December 29th if we do it. I also have here not in bold the fact that over the past year, we did end up meeting every Monday in December, in part because of budget timing. As well as in January. I'm not necessarily saying that we want to adopt that, but that is what we did in practice last year. And though March 2nd has been the first Monday, obviously we usually eliminated that meeting in favor of town meeting day. So I'd say for tonight, at a minimum, we definitely, if we think first and third at 7 PM should still be our standing regular meeting, we can make a motion into that effect, or we could say first, third, and 5th Mondays at 7 PM as our regular meeting date, and then do special meetings if there's other considerations. I'll also say in practice, this does include a fair amount of Monday holidays. Last year we chose to meet on those holidays at 7 PM. But
I'd be in favor of adding the 5th Monday, but also in favor of considering the 6 o'clock, 6:30 start. Even further the effort to not. Really good.
I'll stand behind the 6:30 start.
Okay, so, I'm to do first, third, 5th Monday with a 6:30 start for Wednesday.
Second.
any further discussion on that? My one note would be, since we hadn't had this meeting prior to March 31st, Karen Werner had scheduled a Board of Abatement meeting at 6 p.m. So I think we probably should keep that meeting at 7 p.m. just so that we can have both meetings if that's workable. And I would be able to late on for a second, but you all have a capable vice chair. I think about the meeting. All right, so we have motion and second, that the regular meeting date and time would be first, third, and fifth Mondays, beginning at 6:30 p.m. Any further, with the exception of Monday, March 31st, beginning at 7. Tom, is that workable for you as staff or any other feedback or comment? I did run this by Mike, who again isn't present and who is open to 6:30. Again, kind of that splitting the difference between eating lunch before or dinner before and being here. Any comment, Evan, did you have your hand up earlier? Over to you.
Just want to put you in, during the summer when I'm working construction, I try to get my boy to snow before 8. I'm using the job at 6 o'clock. I convince him, if I show up earlier, his comment to me, what difference does it make? We're gonna work all day, which usually means till 6 o'clock. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that be careful. You're not biting off more by starting at 6:30. Meetings will still go till 9 o'clock. You know, I'm just warning you that that's good possibility that may happen.
Speaking for myself, I have at 6:22 tonight, so it certainly will be a little adjusting to get on the 6:30 schedule.
I was just gonna say, we'll have to self-police our agendas.
Roger, you said.
Yeah, I was surprised to see the March 31st date, because we had been working on the first and third Mondays. Well, we have had several special meetings, and we scheduled the annual meeting, membership meeting for revitalizing Waterbury on the 31st. So
God.
I will be linked to that one.
Okay.
It's good to have a little preview. So everyone has plans.
Oh. Yep, it was a new thing, so no way for you to plan for ahead of time. Yeah, we said 7 p.m. So you're going to return prior to that.
Yeah, we're going 5:30 to 7:30. Okay.
You know, we do have a fair amount of parade and other logistical events, so perhaps we could front load those.
Right.
What?
I think that's the mouse.
Sorry.
All right. I see a question from Amy about the Conservation Commission, and I'll just defer to in general, again, that being
Oh,
something to
sorry.
work out. That's okay with Tom and I for scheduling those. All right, so did we have a formal motion in a second? Yes,
Yeah.
Tori and Kane. On the meeting schedule, so regular meetings, first, third, and fifth Mondays at 6:30 p.m. Again, with the exception of March 31st. Sorry, at 6:30. Yeah. March 31st. I knew all of that, and I'm just saying it in word salad. We all feel good about that. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? All right. Next up, we have paper of record and locations for posting meeting notices. Tom included in the posted online materials. A copy of our minutes of this from last year. We are designated a paper of record. We post things like notification for all of the ordinances or zoning changes, and the like from us, as well as other town business, like the Development Review Board. In practice, and as I think is included in the subset from last year, staff have used the Times Argus in part because it's a daily printed paper. So there's certain things that need to be a set amount of time ahead of time. And though there is other print papers in the area, they're weekly. So sometimes it requires just more advanced planning. And as was just illustrated with the meeting dates, sometimes we don't always have that. In practice, per the motion last year, we've also tried to include the Waterbury Roundabout. Hi, Lisa and I spoke earlier, which obviously is dedicated to Waterbury and is an online only publication. So we need to adopt a paper record, tonight, and again, have flexibility as the board around, what we would like to do for that. Tom, do you have anything to add on that?
Just that it has to be a print. Paper of record for legal notices. Which has been a fight that's been ongoing for.
As print media disappears.
That's part of the VSA requirement.
I will say, we had this discussion in school board, and we decided to do a print one, and then also include library on that, just as like a second. Backup, more with the. Option, so we need to environment. Okay.
I move that we adopt the Times Argus as our newspaper of record and also send notices to the Waterbury Roundabout.
Second.
Motion by Roger, seconded by Kane. Any further discussion on this? Yep. If you don't, it's just for the online audio. Oh, no, come on.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
no, I'm just wondering, are you putting the majority of these announcements on the website as well, the town website? So they are, right?
Yeah, all notices would also go on the town website. Thank you for that. And that is, Tom, required by open meeting law as well. That if you have a town website, it has to be posted there as well. And per the update, hopefully clearer and easier to navigate moving forward.
Who just seconded that?
Kane, motion by Roger, second by Kane. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, for the record. We are cruising team. I'm so proud of us. All right, next up is warrant authorization. Roger, do you want to do the show and tell of the folder of warrant paperwork in front of you? So as folks may be curious, after we create the budget, each week, we receive a printout from town staff, the clerk and treasurer, all of the town expenses along with documentation. Chris is smiling as a former regular signer. So we as the select board have the opportunity to review all those, make sure we know how the town money is being spent, that there's appropriate documentation, town staff payroll is in there, all of the above. All of the full select board names are on there. In the past, the practice has been to authorize any one select board member to sign on behalf of the board, acknowledging that we're trusting each other as fellow board members, that one of us is able to do that review, but that we don't, for practical, if not other reasons, need to have the whole board sign off. So that's the purpose of this agenda item. And we'll defer to Tom or other board members if there's further discussion.
I move to authorize a single member of the select board to sign warrants.
Second.
Right, motion and second, motion by Kane, second by Tori, to authorize any one select board member to sign the warrants on behalf of the board. Any further discussion on this? Right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Warrants approved. Next up is conflict of interest policy. I believe these were also included in the online materials, and we have somewhat recently updated them. I'll defer to you, Tom, because there's a little more nuance in this one.
Yes, I wanted to specifically note that there's now an ethics law that applies, and our conflict of interest policy obviously defines conflict of interest, as does the ethics law that applies to us. And so when I read them, our policy is more expansive than the state ethics law. And I don't see that there's any conflict between the two. That being said, there's a piece of the ethics law that is unresolved, and that's designating the ethics officer and designating procedures to deal with complaints that we have not addressed yet. None of that, I think, should prevent you from adopting a conflict of interest policy. Just suffice to say that this is an issue that's going to recur 2 times this year.
Should we add a number 4 under conflict of interest to refer to that ethics law?
I think that's up to you. When I read the definition of conflict, again, I don't see that it's in any opposition to the ethics law, just more expansive. I think our definition is actually stronger. But I have no objection to an amendment to refer to the ethics law in the way. And this probably applied to the school too, because it was the ethics law that was passed for us.
I think adding number 5, referencing it, wouldn't, especially if it doesn't contradict, wouldn't, if only be strengthening even more, especially as that ethics law probably gets updated. With that, probably be helpful. And then that leaves us with the needing to appoint the conflict officer. Hmm. School board has to-
Yeah, I think we did that. We did that for now, if it's to receive complaints, municipal manager and select board chair. Allowing the option to address complaints concerning one or the other without including the other, but I, Tom raised that at some point, ultimately. If it's questions about our conduct as a board and manager, who in practice interact really frequently, that if we can include someone with who to serve, I think there was openness on behalf of the board to do that, but in practice
like
now.
outside third person.
Exactly, yeah. But in practice now, just to make the liaison role is Tom Lights as municipal manager, and then the designated complaint receivers are select board chair. And we will need to, as you were saying, Tom, adopt the formal procedure and the like regardless.
If there's a desire to amend the conflict of interest policy. This is different, your rules of procedure expire. That's written at the end of the rules of procedure, but your conflict of interest policy does not expire, so if you want to make an amendment and do that at the next meeting, it's still active.
So, I mean, what are the chances of us having a third person on board by next week?
We haven't gone looking for that first or advertised for it. We had a conversation before town meeting day, and essentially it's been on ice since then. I actually think if it was advertised, there'd be a fair amount of interest by people.
I know that our next item is municipal boards and committees and timeline and process for appointing folks, which I also don't think will be resolved by the next meeting, but it's on the short-term horizon. And I would just also maintain the conflict of interest policy also applies to folks who appoint to boards and commissions as well, not just the select board as a body. Oh, sorry, hold on one sec. We're gonna keep talking and then I'll ask her. Okay.
I mean, so. Under Article 7A, it says the chair or vice chair, if the conflict or potential conflict involves the chair, shall meet informally in private with the public officers who are complaining about to discuss possible conflict of interest violations. So to me, that kind of sounds like we already have a person built into this policy. So I don't know if necessarily like going out and hiring a third person is necessary, considering it's already kind of covered in our Article 7A.
And to be clear, that person was from the state ethics policy, right, Tom? That you were saying?
Yeah.
Or you were saying for this. This is, so we had this and we're operating just on the town conflict of interest policy, and then the state one. So you have adopted both and they're not necessarily congruous, I think as well, right?
I would suggest tabling this, and Tom, if you can email me the link to the state one, I would happily. I would be very happy to like take it over and see that one. And then.
Sure, no, that'd be great. As I said before, this remains in place, it's an adopted select board policy, so there's technically no need to act, I think it's just been a good practice that you re-adopt it with a new select.
Definitely, I think if there's a state thing that may or may not be affecting this, it would be nice to.
And that's, I think the state ethics law is bedeviled and everyone will get.
Yes, so This- I don't know how that works. I don't even want to know what it is.
Yeah, I'll just say in general, this is a best practice and required by the town to make sure that we have ways to make sure that we all are acting in the best interest of the town and not any sort of individual financial or other interests, and to have clear policies to outline how that's done. So that's the purpose of this policy. We've had it for a long time and we're just revisiting it for this year. Yeah, Tori's gonna give you-
So if it helps to give an example, I'm currently serving as Rotary president, so if Rotary came and asked the town for money, I should probably recuse myself from the vote, because that would be a conflict. And then if I didn't, and you're mad about it, we would probably complain to Alyssa, and you're like, why didn't Tori recuse yourself from the vote? You're upstairs.
And Roger?
There's some discussion that the LCT was going to put together a training program on this, because has been a little bit more complicated than it has been in the past, and I was just wondering if that was moved forward at all.
Not yet, there will be required ethics training. That will be put together by the Secretary of State, and that's not available just yet, I don't think.
And on the same path, if the two ethics documents don't coincide, and there's an issue, fact that they conflict, would that be a time for dismissal? Which one of you is supposed to know why?
I think we'd have to go on the ESA, the state statute.
What would it cost if someone would say, yeah, you guys get mixing?
I would imagine.
Ours can go beyond, I'll give you an example, the conflict of interest definition in the state statute talks about a member of a person's immediate family or household. So to me, that means your spouse or your dependents. And I think that's generally understood in the law. The town's conflict of interest policy says spouse, household member, child, stepchild, parent, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, uncle, brother, sister-in-law, business associate. So we're not in conflict. The town's is stricter, is how I read that. And I don't think, and so from that perspective, if you violate the town's policy, you may be violating policy. You might not be violating the law. So I don't think it's an issue that they don't necessarily 100% agree. Provided ours is minimally the same, where it needs to be in stronger in places. And that's something that the Government Public Code of Ethics has sort of foisted upon us, but it wasn't as strong as our own conflict of interest policy that has been in place for a long time.
Perfect. So I'm hearing Tori's proposal was that we table this to a future meeting where we can have some time to do more review with comparing this to the ethics law and deciding if we want to make any changes based on that before formally readopting. But as practice, this is still in force from previous years. Any other discussions on that? Questions? We'll move to the last admin and logistics item, which is open meeting law training requirements. And Tom, I will defer to you.
Yes, this is another relatively new law that came our way. Short reminder is that advisory bodies can still meet remotely only. Non-advisory bodies, which is the select board, the development review board, can meet too. I would also argue the library commissioners, cemetery commissioners. Cannot have remote only meetings. And there is some required training, which is just an open meeting law video that has to be watched by essentially all of us. And that just talks about things like properly noticing meetings, which is, again, on our website, there's a form and there's a way to report if you believe there's been an open meeting law violation. That's to ensure that we for participation, that's to ensure that things like minutes are taken accurately. I think things we're all doing, but I think the law is a good reminder, so we also have to watch that. at some point relatively soon.
We have to all watch it together or,
That'd be fun.
It's not the worst idea. That's take a little select board time to do it, and then we'll sure it's done, it's documented in the minutes every time.
Maybe do it around.
7 to 7:30, March 31st. Oh, wait.
I won't do
I'm hearing a desire to schedule a group, a movie night, a local movie night to
How long
watch
is
the
the
open
video?
meeting law training video. You can
And I
invite
don't
all the
recall
boards and
exactly. It's
commissions.
Not an hour.
Okay, it's not an hour.
I'll double check that, but
Let's make sure we clear our agenda for that day. Well, it could be a fifth Monday.
Is there any other near-term training? I'll just name some. We also have the upcoming Vermont League of Cities and Towns does a congratulations to select board members, which I didn't appropriately acknowledge at the top of the meeting. Welcome, Tori. Happy for select board meeting. Congratulations. Anything else to say on that, Tom? It's on this Saturday, 22nd.
Yes,
I
that's
think it's correct.
Yep.
So the Vermont League of Cities and Towns also does a general orientation training. It's hybrid this year, so you can go to the Capitol Plaza in Montpelier, or they're recording it on Zoom. We all will have access to the full day of recording. I think they have 4 sections for the day. A lot of the basics we've just covered. I mention it because open meeting law is one of their large sections of the day that they'll review. And then also some of their like advocacy and lobbying efforts, and the like. So, it's free to all of us as members. So folks are welcome to attend again, either in person or virtually on Zoom. And Tom, you can help register anyone if you haven't already.
register anyone, and something else I've never seen before. Well, Monmouth County this year is having a select board meetup. And if there's interest, I can send a message to VLCT to see if there's a Washington County interest, or if Washington County folks can join me.
I think hopefully soon. I know there was a desire to have more, so it might just be a tiny thing. Any other outstanding items on administration, logistics, procedure for the year? Yeah. We are ahead of schedule, but I will move to municipal boards and committees, which may also be brief. The 2 items we had under there is review of those with vacancies and process for appointments. And then revisiting the select board liaison roles, which we've discussed previously. So Tom has provided a listing. I believe this was out of the town report. I spoke with Karen earlier today, and it sounds like these were vacancies as of like the end of calendar year 2024. So there may be a couple additional stragglers.
Yeah, this was what was in the town report.
So this was what was in the town report, but noting, I think, in short, the takeaway for me is there will be some vacancies and or reappointments on a number of municipal boards and commissions. It notes at the top, term expires 4/30 unless otherwise stated. So in terms of practicalities with our now adopted meeting schedule, we have the 31st. Through fund court, because we didn't have folks run for school board, we have already been asked by the superintendent for timing for that and agreed to review those candidates on the 7th, on 4/7. But yes, I've heard from at least one person who's interested, so I don't know if it's plural, but I've heard from at least one person interested in appointment. But yes, so just to name, we have until 4:30, so this could be content for 4/7 or our second meeting in April. In practice, there's usually a period of like advertising with these vacancies. We could, if we wanted, include the ethics position in that. There's also some additional positions not on here. I'm thinking like liaisons to they're at the end, something about regional planning commission. So I think, again, purpose of this is mostly to flag that we likely will have a large chunk of upcoming meetings dedicated to reviewing and appointing folks. And to see if there's any input from board members as to the timeline for that. Do we think we should push for 4/7? Do we think the second meeting in April?
If you want to stack 4/7 with appointments. You might. Because you said you're going to be absent for that meeting.
I'm just gonna be late. I have to present to the Morristown Select Board, who meets at 5:30, so it depends how long I go and when I get back. But I wouldn't say work around me. I'm just getting my phone so I can look at the date. So we have an April 7th and April 21st. Both of those would allow us to appoint folks prior to terms expiring. We could do both, recognizing sometimes we have some applicants in a later round. But I'm just noting that, I'm meeting with Karen next week to go through the process. In the past, we've done like a one-page application, why are you interested? Advertise that to folks in the community and on the town website. Roger, I think it will go ahead, Tom.
I will be absent for the 21st.
Oh, okay.
So that's certainly going to be my input to appoint people to committees, so if you want to fill the 21st with probably an hour of appointments, that's maybe not the worst day to do it.
Okay,
Not to say I don't love the appointment process.
great. So I'm hearing strong support from the municipal manager for the 21st. Other input, Roger?
I was just gonna say, we need to have a certain amount of time for the interested parties to apply. And we have to review their candidacy. So we need to sort of think backwards. If we want to do appointments on the 7th, we need to know about those candidates, like at least 48 hours, if not a week beforehand. So, creates a bit of a time crunch, potentially. But I would also say it is good to at least have 2 days of doing appointments, because I can get very long. Interviewing a bunch of nominees for all these appointments that need to be made.
Other input or comments on this? And just noting for information, the school board ones are being collected by the superintendent and the school board chair, and will be forwarded to us in a package ahead of the 7th. I'm here to support for maybe if there's some to do some initial review on the 7th, but recognize we'll likely have a very large portion of the 21st devoted to these as well. Any other input on that? Okay. So we will plan to do that. I will touch base with Karen and get back to folks and make sure we have that again on the town website, front porch forum, with the outline process and opening. I'm sorry, was there a hand? Clear the peripheral vision is going tonight. The second portion of this was the select board liaison role and assignments. We had a brief discussion about this at our last regular meeting before town meeting, and just talking about with all of these municipal boards and committees, having a designated point select board person who can attend some, maybe not necessarily all, but a number of these, and be able to report back and build connections and be a go-to resource about what's happening here on the select board. Not all of these have had select board liaisons. I would note Mike, who isn't present, has been the liaison for the DRB and the Conservation Commission and has expressed willingness to continue both of those. I'm currently serving on the Housing Task Force. Kane, you've been involved in Natural Disaster Preparedness Committee. So you know when? Yes, it is all on the town website. I don't know everyone offhand, but we also, this doesn't need to be a tonight moment in terms of if you want to review regular meeting schedules in terms of preference. I'm serving on planning commission, but certainly and housing for that matter, willing to reconsider.
Yeah,
Just in terms of timing.
Happy to take some of these on just you to
Review.
figure out.
Yep. And I'll note, we definitely have an opening on recreation as of now, because that was Ian. And I don't think we've had a liaison to the tree committee previously, so. Yes, yeah, generally not meeting, but certainly look, because I'm like recreation, I think is a Thursday now, maybe third Thursday, housing task force is third Thursday, conservation is like second Tuesday, it is online, I see Amy has her hand up. Yes, Amy, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful. I have a question about structure. Do you folks set that within the select board, or are you allowing that to occur within the relationship? So I know Mike is willing to do it, but we haven't had him heavily engaged. And it makes it difficult when we have information. We have information that gets posted and things of that nature. But in terms of decision making, I'm still struggling to find space for that.
I'm just trying to answer each part of your question correctly, Amy. So with regards to the role, I think we've talked about kind of general select board expectations. In practice, we have not had, speaking for you two, like a set matrix around what you allowed folks to have individual judgments speaking
Yeah,
on behalf of the board and communicating, and then encourage them to invite or bring issues to the full board when it's been
I've used
more of a
word- I've
decision
used the
making.
word Advisory a lot, one time about it. So yeah, I don't know, the decision-making aspect of Amy's comments throwing me out a little bit, I don't necessarily know what you mean.
Right, and I'm recognizing, Amy, I know you've been in touch with some really specific questions, and I think those are likely things that will come to the full select board. I think the path, even if Mike, as your liaison, had questions or had these more major decision points, would be to bring them to the full board, so I think that likely is the next step. I think the 31st is probably a date we could work that out, to have you come and present to all of us. Roger, and then back to you.
Yeah, I don't believe that there is a decision, making element to this liaison role. It's more just a communication such that, the liaison can inform the committees as to what the, intent or interests of the, select board have been based on conversations that we have, during these meetings. And also inform the select board about what is, going on within the committees and, what issues they're taking up. As Kate said, providing some advice as to what maybe might be the priorities of the select board for the, committees to work on. And I think it's been working reasonably well, but I do agree that would benefit from further definition. And I would also suggest that the liaisons could help arrange for the committees to make at least one presentation during the, to the select board.
Thank you both. I definitely am looking at this from a lens of efficiency and effectiveness. And I just think that I know not all parts of the municipal management are functioning at the same rates, but I know for us, we've had some pretty fast turnarounds that we know that it's burdening some and all of us in some ways that I don't think it needs to. So it'd be great to have those conversations. I appreciate it. Thanks for considering.
I can sign on to that.
Tori for now is volunteering for the recreation committee. Thank you. Any other feedback? If not, I'm hearing we should do again 2.0 revision of this at a future meeting. Is that okay?
Oh, no, we had a pretty long discussion about it. Last time we talked about it, about what our Williams, committees. Well, I felt pretty good walking away from that conversation. I think we need to rehash.
I think the problem is that maybe, we had a discussion, but we didn't have a succinct, encapsulation of what we finally agreed on.
I would say that there's some succinct encapsulation of the email to me, so I can know we all agreed on that and get to.
I'm hearing a description to have a written description to have clarity for board members and the public and board leadership about these roles that we can all form.
I'll
Roger's
offer
thinking-
to draft that.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. Roger's gonna draft, and then if there's any additional tweaking around assignments and goals, we can finalize that at the next meeting. Was all I meant by that
Well-
versus a wholesale litigation.
And I'll also note that, like Tori, I have a conflict of interest in that I'm serving as executive director for revitalizing Waterbury, which does receive some funds from the town. And there are a couple of committees that where I would probably run into conflict of interest on a regular basis. So, I was gonna suggest that, I take back recreation. I don't wanna step on any toes, but, that's one where I'm not as likely to run into that.
No, do you do,
Well, trees could work, but I work with the design committee, which interacts with the tree committee to
no,
some
that's
extent.
perfect. Usually Brett, I'll do planning, because then I just, I need to show up on this. And then whenever I figure out when tree committee actually meets. They were the 1:30 meeting coming up, and I'm
Got it. All right, and checking on Twitter. Great. So I'm hearing Roger, Rectory Planning. I would note another piece of this feedback follow-up that we hadn't fully worked out was making sure to inform the relevant boards and commissions of, hi, I'm your new select board liaison. So again, we can
I'll
work-
include that in the encapsulation.
yeah, we can work on that formal approval and notification at the last meeting, but thank you both. Anything else on this? Okay, and we'll move us on to the next item, which is debrief of town meeting and potential next steps. Obviously, we formally approved the meeting minutes on our consent agenda. But just wanted to hold some space on our agenda to have a time for board members to share any takeaways about anything that happens at the meeting overall or specific items in terms of action planning for this next year. Roger.
As Chris noted, there was a lively discussion about, whether we should continue, the town meeting in its current format, with votes from the floor versus, the Australian ballot. I thought there was a good discussion, actually. But it did appear that there was some interest in maybe finding some way to involve more people than could show up at that Tuesday meeting, and that having the default being the way that Duxbury has gone wasn't the way that the majority of voters were interested in. So I feel as though having some type of ongoing study to extend that discussion might be useful.
Other reflections?
Yeah, I agree, and I understand and respect the decisions that were made, but I will say, I think we should look at a way for if there are disabled people that cannot make it, how they would go and create a plan if possible for them, just to be wary of violating the Disabilities Act. Might not be on the top for that.
I mean, these are school, unless
Well, and I'm just gonna let all board members, and then if you wanna come give any of your feedback.
the same, well, I'm pretty sure they're already following. The ethics is really not-
No, so specifically towards voting, not necessarily towards getting into the building. So like, if you're bedridden and cannot actually get out of your bed, you should still have a method to vote, whether that's be somehow arranged an email system and then request it. They're just entitled to ask the town within a reasonable amount of time, pay an accommodation to get there, to get in the vote, to get an opinion, whatever. And if we are unable to meet that, then it gets kind of swirly on if we get in violation now. So I just think we should explore ways we can accommodate if necessary.
Other takeaways or feedback? Yeah, go ahead.
So what you just said. You're not talking about wanting to select or target of you.
No, I'm talking specifically about the annual town meeting. And yeah, I don't know if you're able to go there. There's a good hour-long discussion about this. So I can't summarize the whole thing, but a number of people got up and said, Yeah, I don't think that I'm hearing enough clarity as to what's being proposed that I can vote in favor of it. But I'd like to see people that are not able to participate in this discussion, and there's plenty of debate about who was able to be there, and you have to make choices in this life and blah, blah, blah. But that maybe we could look at different ways to be more inclusive.
Yeah, there was some things that were suggested, like, you know, obviously the Duxbury is highly stated, but then there's also like a representative system that was thrown out as an option, so I think I agree, I think just a further exploration of options or just discussion would be helpful.
Other feedback or takeaways?
Yeah, I think there was a pretty strong pushback against making change. And as I said prior to our having town meeting day, I really feel like there's been a push from this board to continue to change our format. I'm a little dismayed if we're to find out that there still seems to be a push, unless you're very specific about what it is. But majority did, more than the majority voted against this, and creating another board, another committee, seems redundant. I think I'm just sort of surprised to hear that we're taking next steps to continue what's clearly voted down.
Okay, I'm gonna let Chris go. Yeah, and if you don't mind coming up, I do appreciate it, and just to be clear to folks, it's mostly because otherwise I don't know if you're gonna be heard on the recording or Orca is the reason we ask folks to come up, so that's the only reason.
No, I certainly don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. It's been 261 years again since the official start of town meeting in the state of Vermont. I think probably this issue's been in play for 261 years. Because throughout that time frame, not everybody's been able to make it to town meeting. But yet the institution still stands. With today's technology, is there a potential way to somehow incorporate votes from online? It seems like a stretch. Maybe somebody smarter than I am can come up with an ingenious way to count floor votes along with possible Zoom votes. That seems to make already a, I won't say a difficult structured meeting more difficult. I think what concerns me the most, I had a friend of mine just text me tonight, actually. I'll read you his text, and it pertains to this issue. And the rub for me is this guy's been retired for some time. He's got probably every capability to make it a town meeting, but for whatever reason, never shows up. He said, how can we get a vote by all residents on having town meeting versus a few making the decision? That was his text to me. I fear that if we change this to Australian ballot, a couple of things. We've seen the results of school education costs based on Australian ballot. I think Kathy Grace weighed in on that a little bit. And also we've got, at the State House, in order to have any input, testify or whatever, I just recently tried to reach out to one of our representatives to get my foot in the door to testify about salt reduction issues. It seemed very difficult to get involved in that, unless you're up there every day being involved in it. It's kind of I won't say it's an unrepresented process, but between the cost of affording to live here based on policies that are coming out of the State House, which how many people don't get to weigh in on those, versus and along with the school board, I fear that town meeting would follow the same path and we would lose control, because it's basically the last stopgap scenario for any possible change, certainly discussion amongst people who've been in the town for a long time, know the history of the town, have attended town meeting almost faithfully, and probably are as well knowledge as to what's going on in the town as most people are, or can be. And I think that, for me, the votes that come out of the floor have the best knowledge of the best interest of the town. So, I don't know what other alternatives there are, you know, having additional meetings. You've seen the results of that, maybe. You know, attempting a few more of those may drag people out of their home, but like I said, the guy that just texted me, he's got every possible availability. Show up at town meeting, and for whatever reason, he doesn't. So. I don't know, and again, I thought there'd be a room full of people here tonight. They should have.
Maybe above average. I'll offer my own thoughts as an individual, not speak on behalf of the board, because I'll say a certain thought. I will say fundamentally, having served on the board now for 3 years, I think warning the town meeting day format question did exactly what I hoped, which is engage a lot of people in the conversation. I think fundamentally the win for me is that we have a paper ballot vote of more than 200 residents talking in a really engaged manner. So we have asked this question on the board before. In my mind, that was because we usually had 30 to 50 folks weighing in. And so we weren't sure what that really meant. So to me, one of the big important takeaways was that by having something on the Warren Town Meeting agenda, it really upped the intensity of discussion. So personally, I really saw that as a win. I think, like Roger, my fundamental takeaway of all the comments we heard was there was a subset of folks really strongly in favor of maintaining town meeting exactly as it was. There was a subset of folks really strongly in favor of changing to Australian ballot. And I heard a lot in the middle with we're not sure what this means. What have you looked at other options and not now? So I'm not saying that makes it any more definitive, but to me, there really was 3 camps. There was definitely yes, a change, definitely no, a change, and definitely not enough information to make a decision right now. So when I personally think about other formats and learning from other communities, that's part of it. I had coffee last Thursday with Susan Clark. She's the town moderator in Middlesex. She wrote a book on town meeting called Slow Democracy. In partnership with the center researcher who worked for the Center for Research on Vermont, and all they did was study town meeting. And I will say, she thought Waterbury was a fascinating example. I don't know if folks know, but Northfield also voted on their town meeting day format, and they voted to move entirely to Australian ballot. Waterbury didn't make that choice. We're both municipalities of about 5,000 with water and sewer infrastructure with some really interesting similarities. So to me, there actually really is an exciting moment. And what Susan talks about is its democratic quality versus democratic quantity. And what do towns want and how do you balance both of those? You can have higher quantity in some scenarios, you can have higher quality in some scenarios. And I heard really clear arguments from folks about what showing up in person at town meeting meant and what being able to vote by Australian ballot meant. So to me, the potential around exploring that further is questions that sitting on the stage, I was like, we absolutely did not look at the Brattleboro model. We absolutely did not look at other town meeting timing. To me, it was a bit of a dress rehearsal. There clearly was serious engagement in it. And working on Have Your Say Day for the first time, we didn't have a ton of time to do outreach and awareness because it was over Christmas break and we had never done it before. So I know for me, there's still some unanswered questions in my mind. So that's my perspective. I certainly would be interested in, again, just getting additional information. It's not saying we're going to do anything with it, but to me, there was really lively debate with, yes, a vote that went one way, but also several different subsets. So that's what I'd be interested in discussing. Ballard,
I think.
do you want to come up, Jess? It's truly just so that the Zoom and the recording.
I like
can be
these.
there. No, I like that totally.
I think the hand vote was about 140 to 60. So I think it was like 2/3 in favor of keeping the meeting. So I'm not sure why we're still debating, should you keep it or not? But I definitely think that we should consider adding the hybrid. I heard a lot of people talk about hybrid. Everyone's like, wow, this is a big decision. I really like the format that we have, is what I've heard people say. And I heard 2/3 want to keep it. So I'm not really sure why we're debating if we should or shouldn't. We are keeping it based on the vote. So I would just say, let's investigate how to make it more hybrid for the people like what you're talking about.
I think that's gonna be part of the discussion. I think that's what the goal is just to like explore how do we make it more hybrid or explore those.
Okay, well, what I'm
Or
hearing
campground.
is you're not really sure why we're keeping it. That's what I'm hearing from the back. You're talking a lot about keep wanting it to be Australian. So
That's not what I'm saying.
that's what I'm hearing from the group. Me personally, perception is real. So I'm listening to you say, still talking about why are we having it? So I think we're having it.
Right, and I don't think any of us are contending that vote or trying to disrespect those people that voted that way. I think what we're saying is we did during town meeting day articulate that there's a third camp of like, let's explore hybrid, like what about the Brattleboro model? Like, what about, you know, this other thing? Like, and they just kind of wanted more discussion on it. So I think that's kind of,
I think even the people that wanted to keep the meeting real would consider definitely hybrid. We just don't want to lose the annual meeting. Then I think there's 1/3 that only wanted Australian. So I think maybe we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and I'll just need like what Susan Clark framed, so what I appreciated hearing is actually her thing, and again, she studies company for a living, is that what we do is already a hybrid. Some towns vote their select board members from the floor. So just to say, so like Waterbury actually already made the choice to say, we recognize we think select board should be by Australian bound, and we want to have a floor meeting, so that is in fact a hybrid option, and again, I think there can be more conversation about what that looks like, and again, not trying to push any outcome, trying to say, if someone asks me a question, I'm naming for me, there was things that I said, oh, we hadn't actually explored that, so I don't know what that would look like.
I would just like to make sure that we all are on the same page and that we're all on the same team. We all want the same. We all want to be able to speak our voices. And a lot of us want to be at town meeting. And some people choose not to. I mean, a lot of people showed up that day. They made that decision that day. It was important enough. It's always on the same day, like Thanksgiving. I mean, it's the same Tuesday every year. If it's that important to you, based upon the agenda, the warnings, people can make it happen. And those that can't, I totally agree, and that should be an alternate way.
I think Evan had her hand up next, is that okay? And then you can be right after him.
Evan Harold Hoffman. I think I agree with a lot of what you said. What I heard sitting in the audience was a lot of people acknowledging the limitations of the current town meeting day format, even from the people who were speaking against Article 8 in Australian ballot. And a lot of people interested in still looking at other alternatives, hybrid models, other things like that. So I think that's why we should continue talking about it, despite the vote not going into the Australian ballot. Because the way I understand it, the vote was not, the voters did not say, let's keep town meeting day as is forever. They said, let's not switch to Australian ballot right now. And those are not necessarily the same thing. So I think we want to encourage people to keep looking at options.
Yes, please, thank you.
What I'd like to see the board doing, based on the fact that 2/3 said we don't want to change format. We can't read into what they thought otherwise, other than some of the people that got up to speak to say, you know, we would love to see other people be able to show it. I would love to see the board focusing on how can we encourage people to come? What can we do to publicize the meeting more? What can we do to encourage businesses to make sure that they encourage their employees to show up at the meeting? And I know that at the meeting, some people mentioned some business has closed or specifically made it a point to get everybody there. But now I just feel like, people didn't vote on, well, should we change the format? We're making an assumption that 1/3 of them or more, would like to look at alternatives. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm just feeling again, like there continues to be this push to change the format And it was clearly voted to not change the format. So instead, if it's all about getting people to participate, how about if we focus on encouraging people to participate and encouraging the businesses to encourage their people to participate? So it's more of an educational thing, like, let's get the word out there about what it means to show up at town meeting day. And what the powers are that you have when you show up at town meeting day, because if you talking about what another, I don't know who it was, Brattleboro or something that has another way of doing it. It just feels like you guys are keep looking for ways to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish and what not, the majority of people that showed up want. And that frustrates me because it just feels like this push. So I would like to see you guys focus more on encouraging people to actually be at the town meeting that we've had for all of these years.
I think. In a roundabout way. Both things can be accomplished, right? The majority of voters who attended town meeting day said no. But there needs to be a way for someone who cannot leave their house or someone who has time getting anywhere to be able to vote. That being said, Lisa did make some good points about advertising and conditionally, I think it would need to be added to our charter is a potential labor ordinance that relates to not penalizing employees for missing work to attend town meeting day. Then we get into a lot of legal dispute. But worth looking into nonetheless, because we did try very hard last year in working on changing the format. It failed. Let's try the other options.
I will say the state has a law about you cannot penalize your employees for missing on the day. However, that does not mean you need to pay them. And if you have a small business that you only have like 2 people, you can get an exception if you can prove that would be an unusual hardship, I think is the way it's saying is to have your business closed for town meeting day. Not saying that we can't explore a stricter one for the ordinance, I just think we'll have to move it.
Right, absolutely. It would take some quite the exploring, but it's also not worth looking into. Or making some sort of town celebration. Where it's like, it's town, it's town
Right.
parade,
Which I think just goes to the bigger things involved.
right?
I think all same.
Yeah, I would say in some of the other towns, it has been specifically on like, what are those ways to include more folks, up to including like, should there be a town fund? If you need compensation to come to town meeting, we offered childcare this year, we provided free lunch that the town paid for, so I think that is something we're thinking about and a reason some of us want to have some follow-up boards and committees while it's fresh, while people are here tonight, feeling so strongly about this. It's like, yes, let's have this conversation now while we just have been meeting and recent memory. So that's one more piece. I'm gonna go to Kelly and then see if we move on.
100%. There's advertising in this town is ridiculous. There is nowhere to advertise. I mean, local news is. But for those of you that really want this Australian rule, can you give me 3 bullet points as to why you would like to have the Australian rule over what it's been for 261 years?
Well, I would actually note that none of us I certainly didn't speak publicly. We as a select board let voters decide on this at town meeting. And I think we're hearing a lot about that. It's because we want to change it and. I mean, if anyone wants to speak to it, feel free.
Yeah, we put it to question. There was a lot of debate about it. We put it to public question. I let the public answer the question and they answered no.
Right.
But we
And,
wanted to give the opportunity to the public to answer the question.
and why would you be for it versus the way it's been? Roger?
I'll be glad to. Yeah, I mean, again, we were focused on the approach that Duxbury took, and what Maureen Harvey, the town clerk over in Duxbury, said to me was that she feels that it's more democratic because more people get to vote. And that, you know, I said this when I introduced the measure, the article at town meeting, that, you know, I personally did not present my take on it, but what they found was that more people were able to participate, and part of what they did was they had a town meeting format at Have Your Say Day at a time when you could adjust the different revenue issues in advance of the warning, the entire article. And that on the day, people came, were able to bring their kids or older parents. It was difficult to get in and out of the car, and they just had the experience that more people were able to vote. So that was my interest in pursuing this and putting it before the board, before the voters.
It's not much clearer to me, but I will do some research on the Australia.
And you can also read, we approved the town meeting minutes. They're listed under March 4th.
Okay.
And I think we actually wrote the name and comments of everyone who spoke to that at the meeting, so you can read firsthand, and the meeting was recorded. So if you want to watch. Not the 200 or so people, but like 40 had a debate, there's some good points in there.
Yeah, I left before that, so I will.
But it is there. if you
Thank
want
you.
it.
Yeah.
Any other comments or next up, Tom?
I just make one observation as a non-resident who is gonna show up to work, whether you're a town meeting day or not. Just my observation, having been through 3 of these a year and having sat through them in other towns, is that I think people get lost in the budget. Because I've noticed the budget, vote, and conversation is pretty short. But these specific spending articles, we tend to spend a little more time on it. I think it's because it's easier to digest it from versus the entire budget. And that's just an observation. Maybe this year that ran through a little more because we've been through a long debate about Articles 8 and 9 before we talked about the budget. But my takeaway is you get more quality, and perhaps we should think about breaking up the budget into a couple other pieces if possible.
I would also call to attention that you took the liberty, Tom, of adding capital plan to the parking lot. And just in terms of town meeting debrief and next steps, I think that was a loud and clear piece of feedback around having that publicly available as part of the town report for next year. So that's certainly another next step feedback. Any other change?
Yeah, just to make one final statement, whether it's no Australian ballot or yes Australian ballot at all in the future, we as a community do need to figure out how better to get more community members in the door to cast their votes, whether it's on a piece of paper or whether it's by hand. We need to be able to help people in our community get to the voting and cast their vote. Because sure. And yes, we can do that through advertising, of course. Yes, we can do that through waving pom-poms and having pie and try our best. But I think it's something we should never stop doing, trying to make voting more inclusive. Which I think was, you know, one of the ultimate goals of passing that question on to voters is this has been tried and tested to make voting more inclusive. Everyone said no, right? So let's find another way to make voting more inclusive.
Jim wants to have,
There was,
if you get more in there.
and that was only 5% of
Yeah.
that's population.
Yep, one more, but then I think I'm gonna call it.
So my concern is, yeah, getting more people to vote, but making an informed decision. I heard about one person that was at the town meeting that, which surprised me because this person's fairly involved in town politics. Voted to go to Australian ballot because he was upset that when the cell tower debate came about up on Schutzville Hill, that he was teed off because he wasn't informed about it and it got voted or it got new litigation, right? And that upset him enough that made him vote against traditional town meeting, when in fact, person that told me this, I said to them, well, inform this person that cell tower issue was part of our town plan. We had no choice. We had to litigate it. So if that's a pure case of being uninformed or misinformed about an issue to do with town affairs, and that's what worries me is that when you, and I know from experience, when I go to vote on the school board budget or school budget, I'm looking at a number. And I really don't know what's behind it. And that's difficult to make a decision on how pissed off you are or not pissed off about the figure in front of you. Because that's really all you're looking at, and that's all you're considering. Can I deal with this out of my pocket again or not? So if there's a way that we can somehow engage more people to be informed, I'd be all for Australian ballot if you could achieve that, but that's a bigger task than I think any of us can take on.
All right, I'm seeing Mike Dacey's comment online. That 1,100 people voted for select board positions this year versus about 200 that voted issues from the floor. And Sandy Stevens saying there's a municipal officials code of ethics training through the state, and she sent a link to your email. Thank you both.
Any other follow-up items on this? Lisa?
I'll be right back. Lisa Story, part a couple things. We've gotten cut up. There are stories posted on our website. There was a story that interviewed Susan Clark for town meeting day. We talked about what she's a moderator in Middlesex. They moved their town meeting to evening meeting. They start at 4:30. They figured out a lot of people in their town work for state government. They're able to get there in the afternoon. They have an evening outlet. They have childcare. They said in their warning the time specific when they're going to talk about their budgets. So people know the budget's at 5. They've seen an increase in participation. It's still the meeting. It's still everybody in a room. It's still people eating. It's still talking to one another. And it's still raising their hands and doing all that stuff at a different time of day. So there's an option, right there. There were votes in Stowe, there were votes in Hyde Park, there were votes in Charlotte. I personally have not done that to look at all of these. Stowe did not vote. Stowe already has put their financial questions on Australian ballot. They just keep their public questions on an in-person meeting. So they had an in-person meeting to talk about whether to put the public questions on the Australian ballot too, and they decided that they still want to keep that little bit of them in-person time meeting. So there are some other options out there to still have traditional town meeting, but to try to make it in a way that more people can participate. The breakdown that it ended up being was 4.3% of the registered voters were in that 144 to 64 vote. Just the record on that. So there's still a lot of people out there that are not participating. So there's, and the Susan Clark, memo after that too was that she would be willing to talk to people here if there were people in Waterbury that wanted to chip around ideas of how to keep traditional town meeting and open it up so have more people to be part of it. So just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else on this? Right, we're caught right back up, 8:41 flood resiliency updates. So naming that there's a number of things here, we both received community input and had pertinent updates on this, so we wanted to make sure that we were setting aside some time to give updates on a variety of topics, and I will turn it over to Tom to start.
Yes, there is a bill in front of the legislature, which for forms in your packet 8471 that would transfer, it's now the Randall Meadow, and so there's some historical significance there, but transfer the cornfield to the town. Interesting enough, the bill to essentially it implies the state will pay for some engineering work. The deeper floodway there. I put in the meeting packet some hydraulic work that was really based on the 2013 choke point study. But interestingly enough, even without updated data and better mapping technologies, what the essence of this is that a relatively modest project in the cornfield. I think, and part of which involves just lowering the hump that's formed by the latest two storms by 6 feet and filling in the swale and Randall does give you some flood benefit. But I think it's significant, and then lowering a portion closer to the river and just get you up to a foot of flood relief, and that's not just the immediate Randall and Elm Street neighborhood, but that would extend about 7,000 feet upstream, so it's effectively all of South Main Street. That would also protect the state office complex. I am testifying on this bill Wednesday morning. With the House Corrections and Institutions Committee. What's that? Give me a second.
9 a.m.
Yeah, we got 9 a.m.
And Representative Wood is online, so I guess just for context, one, like, you're not here us online, is that why you just came here in person, or was that personal preference? Sorry, sorry. Fully call you out in public, I just was like, wait, what happened?
It's good enough. I live right across the street. So,
Yeah. It was practical. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't recording to a meeting that was unintelligible. Hi, Representative Wood, thanks for being here. Do you want to add anything to this? I would just note there's been several iterations of flood bills. This is one specific item that was pulled out. I believe both you and Representative Stevens are sponsors of the other flood omnibus bill. Any other updates?
Just want to provide some clarification because I've received emails from a couple of folks wondering like what's going on, like why were there Barry reps talking about Randall Meadow, introducing a bill around Randall Meadow. So this started off in the omnibus bill, flood relief bill, which had a variety of different items that were discussed in the flood caucus, and we got the Randall Meadow piece in there. And then because of a lot of drafting of a lot of bills in the legislature, it really didn't get released in time for the relevant committees to take up that full bill as one bill. So the speaker asked for it to be divided into separate bills to go off to the separate jurisdictional areas, and corrections and institutions being the one for any transfer of property from state-owned property to other owners or potential owners. And at the same time, this can be considered in the capital bill. So we're kind of moving along parallel tracks, hoping to gain some traction. And we are hopeful, even though the state's Building and General Services current commissioner is not as excited about this as the previous commissioner was in terms of releasing the property. But also, she is hearing from other folks and including folks here in Waterbury. And so we'll see what happens on Wednesday and see what comes out of that committee by Friday. Anything that's going to pass this year would need to come out of that committee by Friday. So I think it has better hopes for being included in the capital bill as opposed to separate action on a bill, because that what we call policy bills have already, the deadline for that was last week. So I think that the best path forward would be in the capital bill, and we'll see how Wednesday goes.
Other questions or comments? I guess, Tom, I don't know if you want to just more explicitly say why you had the modeling done, just to connect those pieces.
So the modeling was already done. This was modeling that was done after Irene. And so it was simply updated and a little bit updated based on the existing data we had for the cornfield. That being said, we have a little bit of a unique situation with FEMA. Every project we've done for FEMA for two disasters, we've done the work and gotten reimbursed. The soccer field at the ice center has been different. The federal government said to us they wanted to close out the 2023 FEMA claim, and so they said, give us your idea of the cataract project at the soccer field and we'll front the cash. And then you do the project, and anything left over can in theory go back to FEMA. So they paid us about $140,000 for the soccer field. There's a 10% match there, which soccer club releases it is going to pay. That being said, we don't have $140,000 worth of work to do this. We probably have less than 100. And so I've had initial conversations, and there's some hope. I think a pretty good chance actually that any leftover funds there could be repurposed towards other things that are very directly FEMA related. And I think updating some modeling for the cornfield, or perhaps if we can own it, paying for some of the initial engineering work would be eligible. And so that's one piece of the puzzle that could come into place, and depending on what happens this week with the bill.
And just
Does it
to
have
say
resources?
explicitly, so when you testify, you can say we have some semblance of engineering backing regarding this. I just wanted to me, it was you wanting to be well prepared for questions you may receive on Wednesday.
The other piece I want to talk about a little bit is the storm sewer system. So the lowest point in our storm sewer system is right on the parking lot of the Wesleyan Church, and that's at 421 feet. And part of the engineering work about the cornfield is that cornfield can be shaped such that there's some improvement related to the storm sewer system. So we in essence will get flooding on South Main Street now before the river gets there directly. And so some lowering in the cornfield and some reshaping in the cornfield can assist with that problem too. Which, the July 2023 flood, in essence, would not have mattered because the water was so high it all connected. But I think the December flood would have made a pretty significant difference for that immediate area around the church and the fire station. Some of the places impacted there, Barton Boutique comes to mind. So it's not just a benefit in a real significant inundation flood. There are those floods on the margins where there's also a benefit too, where certain areas could be blown dry and they would not be known.
Board questions or comments on this?
I have a question for Representative Wood. If the capital budget is the most likely way for this to go through, what type of what should people who are in support of this advocate in terms of, should they continue to advocate for the H471, or should they advocate for this to be included in the capital bill?
Right now, they should advocate for it to be included in the capital bill if we want to get something done this year. And when I say get done, I mean authorizing the state to transfer the property. And we know how long that can take given the Stanley Wasson situation and how long that has taken. But this is property that is has much less desirability for development of any sort. We can see, and we could, I don't know, sometimes it's possible to get language in that encourages, an expedited process by the Department of Buildings and General Services, because I think we should still be pushing for that the property would transfer ownership, not that we would be purchasing the property.
And just to be clear to everyone, according to our current zoning rules, this is a special flood hazard area. You cannot build anything.
And so essentially the property is of no use to the state. I think that, those would be the points, that we would make. I mean, it's interesting to hear Tom's update of the study and what relatively modest changes at the cornfield could do for the downtown. And those are all things that I think will be important to say to the committee on Wednesday. It would be helpful if somehow we can get Doug Farnham to weigh in on this. You know, BGS has the ultimate decision about transferring property, but it would be helpful, as you know, he's in charge of all things flood related, and it would be helpful if we could get him to weigh in, saying that this would be a desirable thing in terms of resilience planning and the ability to minimize flood damage as much as possible within our control.
Valerie's first behind you, and I'm gonna ask you to can you just come up here for the Zoom, because she won't be able to hear you. It's not because I'm trying to be annoying. Really? Just kidding. I'm just wondering if the state leased the property to the farmer again for corn.
I don't know the answer to that question, but somebody from Buildings and General Services will be in the room on Wednesday, so we can ask that question.
Okay, because I mean, perhaps the town of Waterbury can lease it and include some major improvements, like maybe leveling it out. You know, if it's for lease, doesn't have to be to a farmer.
I think that's a very creative idea. If for some reason we, you know, get the inclination from BGS that they're very reluctant to transfer ownership. I think that's a creative idea to think about, the town leasing it.
Being in the business that I'm in, I've got some pretty good experience with this type of thing, not to throw cold water on this issue, no pun intended, but typically when you remove silt from an area like that, it's an opportunity for the next flood to go back in. I don't know what the cubic yardage, you know, based on what your sheet shows, is there a yardage off the top of your head, Tom? Okay, well, I'm curious to know what that yardage is. Is it gonna have to be tested for toxins? I suspect it's probably gonna be toxic. Where's it gonna go? What's gonna cost to dispose of it? But the bigger issue is whether or not it's temporary fix. I removed 1,000 cubic yards from the riverbank up by my house just a few years ago, and you wouldn't know it today. It's there again. Not gonna be interested in, but it's in the form of sandy gravel now. So I worry about throwing good money after bad in this situation, as much as I would love to think that this could help with our problem. It may just be a temporary fix and the use of a lot of money that maybe could go elsewhere. That purposes if their lines don't get in front of us that could serve that purpose. Just something to be concerned about.
Other questions or comments for anyone on this or more generally?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
I think I understand what Chris is saying, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I also think that when we have the opportunity to potentially have an impact in the downtown and potentially make our community more resilient, and yes, it may take ongoing maintenance of some level. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't try it, is my thoughts on that.
We'll plan to have this on our next agenda after Tom's testimony. If there's other pertinent updates, Teresa, would it be useful to have any formal action from the board other than Tom's testimony in support of this?
It's always helpful for the, Corrections and Institutions Committee to hear from citizens in Waterbury, including the select board and anybody else who might be inclined. Yeah, I mean, emails expressing your thoughts about this would be helpful.
Okay, and you're just directing those to the full committee?
You can't really, well, you can, it's, I would say to direct them to the chair and the vice chair, which is Representative Alice Emmons and Representative James Gregoire.
So board members and individual community members interested in supporting this, encouraged to contact the chair and vice chair of House Corrections and Institutions.
Yes, and as I said, to be included in the capital bill, it would need to be done, in the next couple of days.
As a formality, does the board want to make a motion, supporting this formally? I mostly think I'm very mindful as currently select board chair that if I was sending something, I would not send it on behalf of the full board unless I had explicit authorization to do so. I'm happy to do that in addition to folks sending individual emails, but if the board wants to make a motion to encourage me to send comments to the chair and vice chair on behalf of the board in support of this, I'm happy to do so.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second to support me submitting to the chair and vice chair in support of including this in the capital bill. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? I'll send something and CC folks, but again, if individual community members or other board members want to send, please don't let them discourage it. If nothing else, for my own support, I just wanted that. It looks like you had one or two more comments and then we can move on. Mike, and do you mind just coming up? Thank you.
Mike Casey, North Main Street. I am also the executive director of Crew. Just wanted to encourage the board or the town in its PR wing to keep people up to speed on this, even if it's a not super exciting news. People are like really jonesing to know what's going on there, and just the fact that there is some motion, some momentum is really going to mean a lot to folks who haven't heard anything in a while. So would just encourage as much communication on this stuff.
Is there another thing? I'm just the Orca Army is really getting me. All right. Great. If no other comments, I will move us on to our next item, which is rental registry updates. So this is more an informational update. We as a board passed a rental registry ordinance back in May of 2024. The intended rollout implementation for this, that was prior to town meeting. Obviously, that has not happened in part due to the municipal permitting software that's going to be for this. So I just asked Tom to provide an update on the current status and outreach.
Yep, so we are very close to the finish line. Finally, it's been a real marathon, but the company has pushed back on just getting the rental registry piece of our permitting software live before the whole package is live. But we now have a go live date on the 24th. Of March, so a week from today. So the question for the board, and then we are ready to mail the postcards. I think a reasonable deadline is we can get the postcards mailed out quickly, and then the reasonable deadline for people to complete the registry would be April 15th or thereabouts, but the board wants to that's something I'm going to argue at all. But I think we get the postcards out ASAP. Now that we have some clarity on the system going live, we can get confirm that on the 24th, have the postcards ready to go that day, and the folks roughly 3 weeks to complete.
Okay, so proposal for Tom on the timeline, input or feedback from the board.
That sounds good to me. I think 3 weeks is plenty long.
Roger.
My only concern is, you can say something's gonna go live, that doesn't necessarily mean that there are no problems with it and that it does go live. So I would give us until the end of April just to give us a bit of margin.
I would agree with that. I personally am tending towards a longer timeline, just also recognizing there's gonna be a fair amount of needing to mail the postcard, have it get to someone, have them know that they need to take action, have them reach out to municipal staff for clarification and the like. So if it works for folks, to have a deadline at the end of April is your proposal, we say April 30th, just to nice you on it. I don't know that we need the whole motion, but I'm hearing Tom input from the board around regarding updating deadlines based on a go live of the 3/24 to have an initial registration deadline of April 30th.
Don't give me, do you need a motion for it?
We can make a motion. So moved.
She's learning quickly.
Motion by Tori, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Shane, any further discussion on this? Any comments, questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Great, and Tom, happy to follow up, there's definitely some deadline and maybe adding a year to the day 2024 for the outreach language, just to make sure we're really clear. Alrighty, next up, we have approved municipal planning grant. We have, in the posted materials, the municipal planning grant resolution. In short, this needs to be approved by us as a board. The purpose of this, as has been discussed, is that the planning commission is planning to apply for a municipal planning grant for additional funding for outreach and technical assistance to help with the town plan update. Again, right now they're doing it in-house, but wanting to bolster that with additional resources in addition to the funding that was voted on at town meeting. So we would need to approve the solution, approve the submission of this resolution. And it does commit to, it's a 10% match,
Yes, which is budget.
including the 10% match, which was included in the budget.
Do you need to read the resolution?
Do you wanna do it?
I move to approve the municipal resolution for municipal planning grant.
Oh, motion by Tori.
I'll second.
Motion by Tori, second by Roger. It is included in full on the website, so I feel better, and we have printed copies here.
Someone be sure to remind me to get a signed version.
Great.
If you wanna.
Which one is your second?
Roger, okay. In short, the planning commission needs to recommend applying for the grant, they're writing it, so that's not a concern. Tom Lights, is designated to serve as our municipal authorizing authority. I think I'm the backup,
Why are you saying that?
and that is all. Any further discussion on this?
Officer position.
Just the priority, one of the priorities of the planning commission is to use some grant funds on the public outreach piece. And I thought the firm they used for the bylaws update, did a real credible job. I thought some of the storyboards and the maps that were here on display were really good. So I think there's a similar plan for the maybe.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Because Tom said it, said boards are also in the back of the room. So as part of the visioning workshop the planning commission did, there's some specific prompts around areas in town. So welcome anyone, especially those here tonight, to go and fill in addition to attending the 3 workshops. And Tom never should have given you a screenshot of how it is now. I'm gonna also show you the town planning page because it's awesome. And journey into this topic, I think. Just to name again, for those interested in ongoing updates, we are now on boards and meetings planning commission. You can see plan WTB, they wanted to be catchy. But this is the updates for the town plan. The community vision session dates are here. Input from the town plan survey and the like is all here. So if you have follow-up questions about what the outreach is bolstering, we just direct folks here as well. All right. And that brings us to select board and manager informational updates. Again, this is a time for informational update sharing for either individual select board members or the boards and commissions your liaison. Again, not getting into discussion, just sharing updates to flag for future meeting agendas or for information. I took the liberty of using public comment for my 2 updates, which again is to one more time plug the visioning sections for the planning commission, handouts, and the website I just said, in the Building Better Waterbury workshop tomorrow for homeowners interested in accessory dwelling units, a whole workshop on design and construction, things to know ahead of time. You can join on Zoom. It will also be recorded. It will also end up on the town website.
Oh, Mike left. He's going to be presenting.
Oh, and Mike Casey, who was here earlier, is going to be presenting on flood resilient design. Is that right, Sean?
Yes.
So anyone interested, whether you're doing an accessory dwelling unit or not.
What time is that?
It's at 6 p.m. In the Salon, and it's being done in partnership with the library's adult education series. Tori, I bet you didn't know what this agenda item means, but if you have any pertinent updates you'd like to share with the board, now is the moment.
Thank you. I will be on June 28th.
Amazing.
I'm sure there will be a permit hitting you guys soon, but that's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you. Kane, anything?
Nope, I bet if the water was higher last night, I would have had more to report. Question.
Glad you don't.
By all that is good, I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Roger?
Revitalizing Waterbury is proposing a volunteer community day, or community volunteer day at Brookside Primary School on the 17th of May in the afternoon, Saturday afternoon.
Will they be fine?
No pie.
Any updates? I'll go to Tom. For board members, I guess I will say, do we think this is worthwhile to keep on the agenda?
I think this would be a really great spot.
Look at maybe a renaming and formalizing.
Yeah.
Any other, let's just.
Oh, no, I thought that's what it did.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm just noting, I talk in it a lot and other folks don't always, tonight being an exception, so if it's not useful, I just wanted to open that, feel free to provide
Well,
that
since
feedback.
the Natural Disaster Committee completed the handbook, I haven't had a whole lot to report.
Understood, thank you.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, this was a proposal, some years ago, there was a community community fair, right? Which was to educate people more about what volunteer organizations and nonprofits were doing in town. This is more to let people know what volunteer opportunities there are for people that want to get more engaged with the town. We've had a number of people, as you've mentioned, that have joined Waterbury, and for those that want to get more engaged, they'll find out about different ways to join different organizations, many of whom are losing volunteers and need some fresh blood.
If an organization wants to participate, who should they contact?
Me.
Roger. At Revitalizing Waterbury.
Roger at revitalizingwaterbury.org.
Tom, do you want to contact Roger on behalf of the town? I hear we have some boards and commissions that.
Yes, I've got all of those, but I haven't put it out there because I don't have a response yet I don't have confirmation on the availability of the place. I have to.
Understood.
Yeah.
Earlier planning stages. All right, Tom, we want to make sure if you have any time for any other informational updates for us.
Sure, a few things, at town meeting day and during the budget, I talked about recreation and a summer camp and how we're limited how many kids we can accept based on staffing. Looks like we've got better staffing than we envisioned. And I talked about in the budget that if we can get better staffing, we can increase enrollment, and it's essentially budget neutral. So we even have someone who has some behavioral behavioral intervention background. I may not be using the appropriate term. But we think based on the staffing we have and the folks who we want to hire, we can open the camp up to another 10, 15 kids, which would be great. Second thing, there is a bill that has a lot of momentum that would allow the town to keep more of the local option tax. Currently, there's a 70-30 split. And we'd like to go to something like 80-20. Another 10% is real six-figure revenue gain for the town, so that's very meaningful if that would pass. Final thing I just want to note, and this was at an E-Fund meeting last week. But it would be, I think, of interest to the select board and much of the town. I'm going to work with the chair of the E-Fund board. Their annual meeting is in May, but the warning is finalized next month. To develop a question for the E-Fund voters to weigh in on about creating about funding, it's not creating, sorry, about funding a study about the costs and benefits of merger. Now, just to be clear, it is not a study about how would a merger happen, which would be a legal conversation involved charter changes. It is strictly limited as envisioned now to simply here are the efficiencies, here are the inefficiencies, here's what could be better, here's what might not be better. Limited scope, factual base. Hire a consultant to likely assist and don't talk about the second order, which would be if the study says there's efficiency gain savings, whatever, simply limit it to the facts themselves for now. Worry about the rest of it.
Other updates, from anyone? All right. I will move us on to the next meeting agenda review. I have a couple notes of things we've already noted. So this is going to be the 31st at 7 p.m. Though we're otherwise changing to 6:30. Roger, you're not here till 7:30. Items I had was conflict of interest and ethics policy. If you think there's sufficient time to do magical legal review. Select board liaison roles and assignments. Final review of description after 7:30. Is that workable?
I'll get it to you in advance.
Okay,
48 hours in advance.
great. Let's see. Any other particular updates? We said we would report back on flood resiliency.
And you got the state police, so it's gonna be.
Yeah. Is that so correct, Tom?
That should be, yeah. Do we want to have any particular topic for them to address? I mean, we've talked about the issues in the Route 2 neighborhood.
Yeah, traffic enforcement, Waterbury Center. Still a huge question up there. Not a whole lot of people getting pulled over speeding on Gulfport these days. Maybe I'm playing. Yeah, I mean. We see them, in the village down there too sometimes, never on Gulfport. So that's a big point of contention for my direct neighbors and people on Maple Street and Howard Street, Gulfport Road. They never see it.
I have Route 2 tracking the center. I think also just in general, staffing availability, response time, contracts and data. I think the question we're hearing from constituents is this worth it? We're paying a rather substantial sum and we know they have staffing constraints, but what does that mean for the level of service we're receiving?
And maybe just patrolling in general versus having their cruiser parked in the village somewhere.
And Tom, is it workable for you to convey these as high level outlines prior to the meeting?
Yes.
One other, I would note, has Amy already left, Amy on the Conservation Commission expressed interest in coming in, so if the schedule is workable for folks. Oh, are you there, Amy? I'm sorry, there's a large
Oh, I'm
item.
here. Well, good.
We haven't talked about this ahead of time, but I'm floating that potentially on the 31st, there could be timing for the Conservation Commission, if that was workable for you or other members to provide updates. You can say no.
Yes. No, I was just looking, yeah, no, I was looking at my schedule. Yes, for me, and then I can send a notification out to the team tonight.
Great, we'd be happy to schedule you for an update on the 31st.
Perfect. Let me know if there's anything in particular you want us to focus on other than what we've already submitted.
Do you know, if, maybe TJ Howard, if he has a requirement or a preference of being early in the agenda or later, most people want early, and so when we have more than one guest speaker, so to speak, they tend to want the early slot and.
I'm good anywhere, it's fine.
That's what I was getting to.
Yeah, it's all good.
We're getting better, but the stacking of agenda items certainly happens. Right. That feels relatively full. Anything else that feels particularly important? If folks think of things prior to them, certainly reach out to Tom and I, and we'll put together something that hopefully is keeping to a reasonable amount of time. All right, next up is executive session. We have two topics. So one is labor relations agreements and one is pending litigation.
I move to find the premature general public knowledge of a labor relations agreement and clearly place the public body. Oh, that's us, the town of Waterbury at a substantial disadvantage.
Motion by Kane, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Kane, second by Roger. All those in favor, or any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? And then the next motion would be to enter executive session and invite the municipal manager. Prior to that, Tom, you're noting that we may have action in open session for the second item. So for the pending litigation, if there's any approvals, those are made in open session, so we would return for that. We'll plan to keep the Zoom running in here, and come back for that. But for informational purposes, we don't anticipate action after the labor relations agreement.
Should I
Potentially for the other one.
Should I make another motion for the premature public knowledge of litigation?
Yeah, or I guess my question is, should we do pending litigation first then before labor?
I think so.
Since that will have action, okay.
Oh, do that somehow.
Yeah, yeah, for the realizing, sorry, doing this in real time. We did vote on that motion, but do you want to make a second motion?
Yeah, I'll make a second motion. I move to find that premature general public knowledge of pending litigation and clearly place the town of Waterbury at a substantial disadvantage.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who wants it? Robin? Motion by Kate, second by Roger, around pending litigation. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? And then,
I move to enter executive session and invite the municipal manager.
is there a second? Second, motion by Kane, second by Tori, executive session for pending litigation and invite the municipal manager. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the board has now exited executive session at 9:30 p.m. Do we have any motions after exiting executive session at 9:30 p.m.?
I have. Okay, I have a motion to approve the draft Montville civil procedure 58 stipulated judgment order in the Armory appeal before the Environmental Division, and to authorize the town attorney to sign and file the order once it is approved by the state.
Second.
Second.
That's awesome. You can give me that language.
The underlined.
Trying to think out.
Underlined, motion by Tori, second by Kane. To approve the draft BRCP 58 stipulated judgment order in the Army appeal before the Environmental Division and authorize the town attorney to sign and file the order once it is approved by the state. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, and this brings us back to where we previously were, which was executive session for labor relations agreement.
I already made the motion on the finding.
Okay, so motion on finding,
So I
made by
moved-
King.
So I move to enter executive session, and invite the municipal manager.
Did we
I'll
vote?
second
We
that
didn't vote on the person, did we?
Alright, who seconded Tori's motion?
I did.
Alright, so we had, only
Okay.
one motion to enter executive.
Yeah,
session.
so we're good, the
We
but
voted on-
findings.
Well, we have both findings.
Yeah, okay, go for it, sorry.
No,
I
we did.
think
Okay.
We moved it, seconded.
Okay, Kane.
I seconded,
Any further discussion? This is for, labor relations agreement. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
And back to the pit.